Well, Julian Assange will have his final appeal to the UK court to fight against extradition to the United States, where he says he will not get a fair trial or be treated humanely. Already, he has never been treated humanely since his legal battles began in 2010. He's been held in a high security prison for the past at least 5 years without having been convicted of anything. Now, we're going to talk about the trial. We're going to talk about a bipartisan effort in the U.S. to free him and about the special treatment he's had since the day he left Sweden on accusations of a sexual assault. But first, some context, because the UK hearing in his case is for extradition, and it has been going on since 2019. Now, meanwhile, he's being held in Belmarsh prison, which is a high security prison where his health is failing, which has been corroborated by doctors. He's suffering from extreme neuroses. He's scared all the time, and he's extremely paranoid, understandably so. He's rarely granted access to his lawyers, and he's denied books and computers. And when he does get to meet with his lawyers, the prison guards say, oh, he's not out yet. He's still doing this thing. He can't make it. So they'll say, you can meet with him between 12 and 3, let's say. And then, oh, he doesn't make it there until 1:30, and then they only have 90 minutes. They do this to him all the time. They did not do that to Chelsea Manning. Chelsea Manning had regular access to books, journals, and computers and lawyers. Assange, I remind you, is only awaiting extradition, has not been convicted of anything. Now, I'd like to compare that with this man. Do you know who this is? This is former Ecuadorian President Rafael Correa. He was arrested in England in April of 2022 on a request from Ecuador, which was seeking extradition to try him for corruption. While his extradition proceedings went on, did he live in prison? He did not. He lived here. This is the neighborhood of Westminster. It's by Buckingham Palace and Hyde Park. He lived in a detached property, a large detached property with 5 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms, a spacious living area, and a garden, and he could come and go as he pleased. He was never extradited. He applied for asylum in Belgium, and it was granted in 2022. The Belgian government's decision to grant him asylum was based on the assessment that he was being persecuted for political reasons. Well, we know Julian Assange has been persecuted for political reasons. Countries are not lining up to offer him asylum. And why does he have to wait it out in prison, whereas this former Ecuadorian president gets a luxurious detached single home in Westminster? I ask you. Do you know why? It is not necessary or necessarily normal to keep someone in prison while they await extradition. So why do this to Julian Assange? Could it be because he published some of the worst war crimes that the US and the UK government were guilty of? Or could it be, check this out, because the judge that originally presided over his extradition hearing was this woman, Lady Emma Arbuthnot.
Arbuthnot?
Yes, Arbuthnot. Emma Arbuthnot. Judge Arbuthnot. Her husband...
She looks like a lot of fun.
Yes, she's not, and I'm going to tell you why. Her husband is Lord James Arbuthnot. He is a conservative politician and former defense minister in the UK who happened to have been outed in the WikiLeaks releases showing he had received funding from defense contractors.
He looks like something. I can't quite put my finger on it.
It doesn't matter what he looked like, Clayton. Are you hearing what I'm saying? He was outed in WikiLeaks for being a corrupt politician and taking money for wars that he started. And they still allowed his wife to be the judge in the WikiLeaks case.
So no conflict of interest. The Arbuthnots, the former defense apparatus, literally in charge of having him held in Belmarsh prison.
Yes.
In squalid conditions.
Now, she did step down from this case because she said there was a perception of bias, which is utter shit. It's actual bias. There's no perception there, but it was her rulings that put him in these terrible living conditions, having him being held in these prisons to begin with. Now, I want to present one more bit of awful hypocrisy by the UK government when it comes to Assange. In 2019, 70 British MPs signed a letter that we're going to show you here to the Home Secretary urging that Julian Assange be extradited to Sweden to face an investigation into rape allegations. Now, we've discussed these allegations before. They were absolutely bungled by the Swedish government in a way that hurt both Assange and the accusers. They used those ladies like dirty rags. It was awful. They never cared about those women in Sweden. We can talk about them another time. It's not to say that I don't believe them, but I don't think that they got a fair shake, and neither did Assange. Now, here is the letter from those MPs. They're saying they really care about sexual violence victims and that Assange must face justice because, sexual assault and rape charges are so serious. They stand with the victims. He must stand to justice. You know who they did not do that to? In the same year, the U.S. Justice Department asked to interview Prince Andrew about allegations in the Epstein crimes. And guess what? No MPs wrote a letter about sexual assault victims and perpetrators being interviewed, and that the victims must actually get their day in court. No letter like that at all. Isn't that interesting?
Curious and curious.
Even when the Justice Department a year later published this saying that Prince Andrew said that he was being cooperative, but we're still waiting for him. They never did interview him. Recall, he settled those cases. So the UK never cared about sexual assault victims. They never cared about justice. They only just wanted Assange. That is, as the Brits would say, total faff. Assange has been exercising every single appeal available to him for freedom. And the court ruled that he could be extradited last year, and they upheld that ruling. Now, this year, he has a trial date set for February 20th through 21st. Now, here's a statement from his team. They are reminding us what's at stake is a possible sentence of 175 years for exposing war crimes committed by the U.S. and the UK as well. Immediately after the court date was announced, protesters said that they would go to the court at 8:30 a.m. on the days of these trials. Do that if you can. I want to encourage you. Now, it said Assange has been confined in high security Belmarsh prison since he was arrested in April of 2019, and this will be his 5th Christmas there. What is at stake here, they say, is that there will be a panel of 2 judges, but we don't know who these judges are yet. It has not been announced. And they will review this high court decision, and they will determine whether he will have further opportunities to argue his case before domestic court. So they're going to say, okay, maybe yes or no, but does he get any more appeals? Does he perhaps have any other chance? So it could be his Hail Mary, or they could decide to kick the can down the road. We don't know. Now, there is a bipartisan resolution in Congress that was released just a few days ago that supports freeing Julian Assange. It's not law, it's a plea to the Biden administration to protect the First Amendment and drop all charges against and attempts to extradite Julian Assange. Here is the bill. And let's just take a look at who is sponsoring it, because it is indeed bipartisan. Representative Massey, Marjorie Taylor Greene, McGovern, Luna, Burlinson, Duncan, Miss Omar. So these are the politicians leading the charge. If you do not see your elected representative on this list, ask them to support it. I never tell you what to do. We never tell you what to think. But in this case, I think
we are absolutely pro-peace, anti-war on this show.
And absolutely for freeing Julian Assange and for protection of the First Amendment. So this is really the only time, usually I say call your representatives to ask for peaceful things. I absolutely think that this is in our collective interest too.
We can all do that. Everyone in the United States right now, heck, call your MPs in the UK as well, but call your members of Congress in the United States. Take a few moments just to do that and let them know what you support, freeing of Julian Assange and this bipartisan bill right now.
Right. So take a look at a little bit of the text of the bill. They say that at least 70 senators and members of parliament from Australia are allied around this cause, and they believe that what Assange did should be considered regular journalistic activities and protected under the First Amendment. And they're asking the government to drop all charges and attempts to extradite him. and allow him to return to Australia if he so desires. Now, I do not see why he would go to Australia. Australia did not have his back, has only just woken up to the fact that he's Australian. The United Nations calls him basically a stateless person because Australia acted with its head up its butt for the last, 13 years about Assange. But at least recently, they have begun to make some noise about it. A group of politicians came to the United States recently to lobby on his behalf. That's nice. Better late than never. And in fact, the U.S. ambassador to Australia, which is Caroline Kennedy, says that she does think the U.S. can resolve this, which I guess we think means not pursue him or extradite him further, but somehow not also lose faith. And also recall that in 2010, when the WikiLeaks documents came out, even Joe Biden admitted in an interview, this was, take a look at the date. Oh, you can't really see it, but I wrote it down there. December 19th, 2010. This is a quote from Joe Biden about the WikiLeaks documents saying, I don't think there's any substantive damage, which means nobody lost their lives. They can't necessarily make the case that this made us less safe. What they were doing made us less safe by waging wars, killing people overseas. And look, the president's approval rating is no longer circling the drain. It is down the drain. It's flushed, right?
Can I say something about that? So here's the thing, right? Every president that has Biden's approval rating, every president in American history that currently has President Biden's approval rating at this level has either started a war or has resigned. So just think about that, right? That's the situation that President Biden is in right now. Wouldn't it be amazing? And by the way, we got word just a few hours ago, actually, and I've been predicting it here on the show, that President Biden will not run for president. He will be asked to step aside. They will try to put Kamala Harris or somebody else in his place. He will not be running for president in 2024. I don't see it as, I'm going to tell you right here, it's not going to happen. We got word just a few hours ago, the Washington Post is reporting that top Democrats are meeting with Biden, asking him to step aside. If he steps aside, or he has a window in which he would step aside, this could be like his, hey, my approval rating is totally in the toilet. I've done nothing. What is the one Hail Mary pass that I could do before my presidency is over to win favor with people?
To give me a legacy that people can point to and say, give a thumbs up to.
President Biden pardoned Julian Assange before he retired or resigned.
Right.
I know it sounds crazy. It's a big leap. There's a lot of leaps to happen. But the Washington Post reporting this afternoon that top-ranking Democrats have now met with the president and are trying to find a pathway to ask him to step aside as president of the United States. I'm telling you, stranger things have happened.
Even Obama has said something publicly now. You know, that's huge, because that's like
Julian Assange
or about Biden.
No, about Biden.
Oh,
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, they're paving the way for Kamala Harris. I mean, and this was all part of the plan to begin with. I mean, let's make no mistake about it, right? So this could be his legacy, to pardon Julian Assange.
Right.
The one thing that maybe his one saving grace.
Even the liberal press, The Nation, just this week published this. This is the kind of things that are now coming out from a bipartisan mouthpiece saying Biden is overseeing the silent death of the First Amendment. Well, it's only silent if we're all silent. We're not being silent. You shouldn't be either. Take a look at this subtitle. It says, by continuing the persecution of Julian Assange, the U.S. is signaling how little it cares about press freedom. That feels true. Again, this is a left-leaning progressive magazine being willing to speak for Julian Assange because the way that anyone with decency knows that the torture of Julian Assange is a shame for all modern governments, especially Sweden, Ecuador, the United States, the United Kingdom, and Australia. So if you're a UK voter, you can contact your MP or petition the House of Commons. So go to freeassange.org to learn more. If you are a US voter, you can demand that your representatives support House Resolution 934. You should demand it. Absolutely. And if you're on the fence about whether or not this is a case worthy of your attention, I saw a comment saying, why is Redacted defending a criminal? Who?
Yeah,
are we talking about?
This
exactly?
guy, Eric in the chat says, why is Redacted defending a criminal? You think Julian Assange is a criminal?
You're not well read in on this.
Yeah, just please read a book. Please read a book. Just pick up a book. Once you do a little bit of homework.
This book, in fact. Yeah. This is a great book by UN rapporteur on torture, Nils Melzner, who has repeatedly spoken out and hurt his career while so doing on the horrendous treatment of Julian Assange. You will not be on the fence anymore if you read this. And I just, you can see my hair's on fire about this story. It always is when we talk about Julian Assange, because if he's not free, none of us are. Not just us as the press, but what you get to see. You will no longer get to know what nefarious things your government's doing. And so if you don't care about that and you think your government is doing wonderful things, first of all, why are you here on a show like this?
Well, someone says Eric probably is a member of the CIA. So that's probably why.
Even the CIA knows he's not okay.
I know. Even the CIA tried to kill him. They knew he was innocent, because they didn't like that he exposed their bullshit. Thank you so much for watching this segment here at Redacted. We are live every day at 4 p.m. Eastern time, trying to share the stories that the mainstream media will not cover. You should also come over and join our community of Redacted rebels over at redacted.inc. That's our private locals community where we can share exclusive content that we simply cannot share here on YouTube. Come over and join the rebellion together right now by going to redacted.inc. We'll see you next time.